Okay, so this is going to be a different kind of coffee with Kevin. We're over here at the bar. I'm here with one of our awesome wine reps, Wesley, and we're talking about wine today. We're not talking about coffee. The show talks not a lot about coffee, so we don't have to really talk a ton about wine either. We can drink it. So. Wesley, thank you so much for joining me. I am so glad that you are doing my first Coffee with Kevin with wine. This will be fun.
It is my pleasure.
You are so we have quite a few wine reps around here that hustle the juice, and so you work for Vino Wholesale, and you are bringing in wines to try to sell me here at St. Roch. So tell me what you brought in. What you got?
So at Vino Wholesale, we mainly work with smaller producers that are making wine sustainably and also regeneratively, and they are doing mainly organic winemaking and also native yeast ferment as well. So the wines that I brought in that I'm going to focus on, this one is from Argentina, but I also have some Sonoma, some Portugal, some Alto Adige from Italy as well. So the first wine that I'm trying to sell Kevin is a Criolla from Argentina.
Okay, all right. So it's in Argentina, okay.
So Mendoza specifically, and Mendoza is known for its Malbec, but it also has a lot of other grape varietals that they've been making for a very long time.
Look how light this is.
And this is Criolla, which means country. So the other grape varietals, or the other words that it's known at is Mission from California and also País from Chile. So it's just the country grape of Argentina. And it is typically a lot lighter.
Yeah, this is great.
In color, and also typically lighter in style.
It's like for Pinot-ish?
I would say that
without tasting it,
it's more similar. It's even lighter. It's more similar to Bordeaux of old that used to be called Claret, and it was known for being chillable, which we love here in New Orleans because it's so hot.
It is hot,
and it's also known.
I did ask you to bring wines that we can sell in the heat.
Yeah,
you got a
It is very, very hot.
Chilled pet nat here that we're gonna do a little bit later, but this is lovely.
Yeah,
I like full disclosure, I know this one and I love it.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple of and the other one we get from you too, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a great chillable red. It's light, it's airy. And I've really been enjoying, as you know, the wine program here because blending grapes is very similar to blending coffee. Like this is like totally within my wheelhouse of stuff. And I like it when you come because you're, a wine nerd. And that's I say that I'm a coffee nerd, like it's fun.
Yeah.
And you're really into it.
Yeah, I think that it's really fascinating. I think that wine represents the history of the country. This particular varietal was planted over 100 years ago. So what was happening in Argentina over 100 years ago, right? And how do we keep it from, and one of the things that's happening in Mendoza right now as well is a lot of vineyards are being torn up for real estate. So the fact that these guys saved this from being pulled up so that we get to taste something that was planted in 1920 is just such a gift. And it's also so
okay, so this is planted in 1920. So is it like a Zin, the older it is, the more the better?
Possibly. Honestly, the older the grape varietal is, or the older the vines are specifically, you just get a lower yield and you get a lot more concentration in the fruit. So it produces less fruit, which means that the fruit that it does produce is a little bit tinier and full of flavor.
Coffee's the same way.
Yeah.
When the plant struggles, it produces more flavor. So the older it is, and grapes I know are the same way. Like the more it's got to struggle in the soil to find wine.
We love a vine that struggles.
It adds the flavor. So for me, it's been fun because this is very close to what I do for a living. Except this is downers beverages, and I'm more of in the upper beverages. And also in my world, usually the more of the product I drink, the more productive I become, and this is the other way around.
Yes. this is the glass of wine that you drink in front of the television at the end of the night.
Yeah. So the other thing too, every Thursday we do a wine tasting here at St. Roch, and Wesley is certainly in our regular rotation. So get on our email list, follow us on the socials. But every Thursday we do a wine tasting or a wine special or something. And Wesley, when she does it, you got to come see Wesley do it, because when you do it, you got your hand-drawn maps. What's the
Yes. So I have been in wine education for a very long time, and I know just how complicated and how complex it is. And I never want anybody to feel bad for asking a silly question, because where wine is concerned, nothing is silly, because it genuinely is so complicated. So whenever I do tastings here at St. Roch, I bring my maps so that we can, if I was pouring the Criolla Chica, for the wine class on Thursday, I would have a map of Argentina so that we could find out where Mendoza is, and so we can talk about the climate and how close it is to the ocean and all of the other aspects that make the wine what it is. And I just love the aspect of being able to educate and show people just how complex and how diverse wine is.
And so I love it when you come do it. So definitely come out on a Thursday. Follow us, and I generally put out like, hey, we're tasting this, or come see Wesley, or come see Andrew, or come see somebody, and you're always doing something cool. And I always love it when you come and you bring your maps, and it's like super cool. So you want to come, you really want to come on Thursday. You bring yourself, you bring friends, you pour little samples of a bunch of different stuff. It looks just like this, and you sample things, and you can bring your friends, and then get your favorite bottle, split your bottle, and and make friends with the table next to you. Hey, let me try that, and it's just Thursdays have really become a fun thing here at St. Roch, and thank you so much for being a part of it.
It's really fun for me. I love to talk about wine.
Yeah, it's so, and I love to drink wine, so it's all great.
Yeah.
So how did you? The question I want to ask, so you're so knowledgeable about it, of course, you geek out on it, and that's great. But when was your first experience with wine where you're like, oh my God, I've got to get into this for a living? What was your
Well, honestly, it started simply with me being in service industry. So I worked at Reginelli's initially, and I sold wine at Reginelli's. But at the time, I thought that Cabernet was the style of wine. I didn't realize that it was a specific grape varietal. I didn't know that I thought Pinot Grigio was a style. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know absolutely anything at all. And then I started to work my way up into the nicer restaurants in the city as I was going in college and all that stuff. And I went to Tulane, where I also simultaneously, though different paths, was learning French. And so I speak fluent French.
Oh, wow.
And as I was kind of serving and learning more about wine, and also simultaneously learning French, eventually those two things converge, because it's very helpful to speak French and learn about wine. Yeah. And eventually my knowledge needed to get more better, because I needed to know that Cabernet was not just a style. What does Cabernet taste like? And then I started to learn a little bit more, and then it was eventually suggested to me to maybe do my job that I have now, which is be a wine representative of a company and work with hundreds of different producers. So I started to the first thing I did was buy Wine for Dummies, and I read the whole book front to back. And then I realized just how insane wine is. Its history, its language, its culture, its food, its geology, its geography, its climate, its everything. And then I started to really like it, because it's chemistry. Most of all, it's chemistry. So then I really started to like it, and then eventually I became a wine buyer for a bar, and then I eventually moved to Champagne, and I worked in Champagne with winemakers, and I was in the cellar. And I was
speaking fluent French.
Yes. And I was in the cellar, and I was in the vineyard, and I was also teaching master classes on Champagne in French. And then I came back home briefly, and then went to Napa and started to do the same thing in Napa. COVID hit, and they put us in the vineyards, which was amazing, because I got to work in Hell Mountain and Stag's Leap and Rutherford, and I got to really work with the soil. And learn a lot about Cabernet and Petit Verdot and Malbec and the other varietals that we had at the winery. And then I came home officially, and I became a wine rep, and now I work with hundreds and hundreds of different producers, and I learn more every single week. And one of my favorite aspects about wine is to talk about it, to teach it, because it's hard.
So you really should come. Long story short, you really should come and experience a wine tasting here at Wesley, because it's just, I mean, and vino is much more, like you said in the beginning of the episode here. You were saying that it's much more of a smaller, boutique-ier kind of. So you've got all these like rarer kind of cool stuff.
We work with much smaller producers. They produce a lot less wine. They're not everywhere. You can't find our wines in Walgreens or Target or Walmart or Costco. You know, you have to really come to a more specific location like Roch Market, where it's got a lot more kind of like, we want the vibe to be a little bit more local, a little bit more sustainable, the wines to match the food.
Yeah.
And then if you decide to come on Thursday, I will take any question that you have. No question is too small or too stupid. Everything counts.
Yeah, it's great. So definitely come on Thursday. Thank you so much for coming. And we've got more of these wines that we need to get into. So we'll end the episode here.
Cheers.
Yes, thank you. Take care.